Welcome, everyone, to a meeting of the Boston Region Metropolitan Planning Organization. I'm David Moeller, our Secretary Monica Tibbetts-Nutt here. Can you put the next slide up, please? You are invited to participate in our transportation planning process, regardless of your race, color, national origin, including limited English proficiency, religion, creed, gender, ancestry, ethnicity, disability, age, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, veteran status, or background. You can read the full notice of your rights and protections at www.boston-MPO.org/MPO_NON_DISCRIMINATION. This meeting is accessible to people with disabilities. Zoom products are compliant with exceptions with the following standards: Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.1 Level AA standards and revised Section 508 standards. If you require any additional accommodations in order to participate fully in this meeting, or if you have any technical difficulties, please contact Sam Taylor of the MPO staff at staylor@ctps.org or 857-702-3702 or via the chat box. All participants will join the meeting with muted microphones. Please rename yourself to include your first name, last name, and affiliation. After roll call, board members may mute and unmute themselves. Always remain muted unless actively speaking. To participate in the discussion, please select the raise hand function. Find this by clicking either on the participants button at the bottom of the screen, and a window will pop up with a raise hand button at the bottom, or the reactions button in the toolbar. The chair will then call on participants. Please raise your hand via Zoom if you would like to use an AI note taker during this meeting. If you're on the phone, you can use *9 to raise your hand. First item on the agenda is introductions. Can you call the roll, please?
Good morning. Mass. Seat 1.
This is David Moeller.
Mass. Seat 2. Mass. Highway Division. The MBTA. Sorry, just checking if my voice is coming through.
We can hear you.
Thank you, David.
Yeah.
I'll return back to these seats. Next is the Regional Transportation Authority's Metro West Transit Authority.
So David, Sandy Johnson said he couldn't unmute. He's here.
I see. Ibu, if you can change the, just make everyone their co-host and just change the host functions, that ought to do it. I'll go a little bit slower as you do that down the list. Okay, let me go to see if Massport is able to respond, and if not, just
Early's here. She's got her hand up.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Sarah Lee for Massport.
Thank you so much. And I'll return to all the other members before. MAPC.
Good morning, Eric Barassa with the Metropolitan Area Planning Council.
Good morning. MBTA Advisory Board. Do you see Hannah?
I don't see Brian or Hannah, so I'll sit in for the MBTA Advisory Board.
Brian Kane's got his hand up.
Okay.
Hi,
Yeah, good morning, everyone. This is Brian Kane. We're well represented today. That's all I can tell you, as we always are.
Brian will be the voting member today, but I'll be sitting in on the meeting as well, just in case.
Thank you so much. I'll note
Thanks.
that down. Good morning, all. Next is the Advisory Council. and that is my error. I think it is vacant at the moment. Let's go to the City of Boston, seat 1.
Morning, everyone. Jen Rowe with the City of Boston, representing Mayor Michelle Wu.
Good morning and welcome, Jen. City of Boston, seat 2.
And I believe Matt Moran will be attending, but I believe he has a meeting that's running late.
Roger, thank you. At-large city, City of Everett.
Morning, Jay Monty, City of Everett, representing Mayor DiMaria.
Good morning. Thank you. At-large city, City of Newton.
Jen Martin, City of Newton, representing Mayor Ruth Ann Fuller.
Wonderful, thank you. At-large town of Arlington.
This is John Alessi representing Select Board Chair Diane Mahan in the town of Arlington.
Morning. At-large town of Brookline.
Good morning, Erin Cute, Town of Brookline, representing Select Board Chair Bernard Green.
Good morning. Inner Core Committee, City of Somerville.
Good morning, Tom Bent, City of Somerville, and the Inner Core, representing Mayor Ballantyne.
Good morning, Tom. Minuteman Advisory Group on Interlocal Coordination, Town of Acton.
Morning, Nate Ryan, alternate for the Magic Subregion, representing Acton Select Board Member Fran Arsenal.
Welcome, Nate. Metro West Regional Collaborative, City of Framingham.
Dennis Giambetti, representing Metro West and the City of Framingham, Mayor Charles Ziski.
Good morning. North Shore Task Force, City of Beverly.
Darlene Nguyen, representing the North Shore Task Force, and Mayor Cahill.
So Darlene. North Suburban Planning Council, Town of Burlington. I'm going to do a check here. Do not see John at the moment. South Shore Coalition, Town of Hall. Also do not see Chris. Southwest Advisory Planning Committee, Town of Rentham.
Rachel Benson, Director of Planning and Economic Development, representing the Swamp and Rentham area.
Hi, Rachel. Three Rivers Interlocal Council, Town of Norwood.
Steve Olenoff, representing the Trick Subregion.
Welcome, Steve. I will call on 4 other members. MassDOT seat 2.
MassDOT C2, John Bashad, representing Highway Administrator Jonathan Gulliver, present.
Thank you, John. MassDOT Highway Division.
John Romano's taking a well-deserved vacation, so he's not here today.
Thank you, David. And the MBTA.
Good morning, Sandy Johnson, representing General Manager Phil Ang and the MBTA.
Good morning and welcome. I will call on 2 other members likely. Regional Transportation Authorities, Metro West Transit Authority.
Good morning, this is Tyler Tarasi, representing Administrator Jim Nee for the MWRTA. Present.
Welcome. And can I call on City of Boston seat 2?
Good morning, this is Matt Moran, representing the City of Boston and Mayor Wu.
Good morning, good to see you. Is there anyone on the roll that I have not called? With that, I believe, pardon me. Do we have Federal Highway Administration present? And the Federal Transit Administration? With that calls the roll, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the chair's report. I don't have one, so we'll go directly to the executive director's report. Taken?
Thanks, David. My name is Tegan Tyke. I'm the Executive Director of the staff to the Boston Region MPO. And if you go to the next slide, please, I have a few different items I'd like to cover today. Some announcements, including a brief introduction of some new staff, an update on our engagement activities, and then, of course, I'd like to review today's agenda and the next meeting with you all. So for the next slide, please. So I wanted to welcome 2 new staff members and congratulate a shift for another staff member. So first, I wanted to mention that Ibu Qureshi has joined the MPO activities team as an assistant planner. That assistant planner role was previously held by Lauren McGee, who I hope you're all familiar with, who's now the agency's environmental planner. And Ibu has now joined us in this position with a passion about climate and the environment. And she has some experience with us. She has worked as a data collector with the Boston Region MPO for the past couple of years while completing a Master of Science in GIS and Remote Sensing at Boston University. And another thing to note about prior to this role is she also interned at a building analytics and reporting firm that helps facilitate energy transition. So she comes with a great background. Ibu, would you like to unmute yourself and just say a quick hello to the board so they can put a face to a name?
Hi, I'm Ibu. Really excited to meet you all and join the MPO staff on a full-time basis.
We'll be seeing Ibu a lot around these meetings, so feel free to reach out. And then second, I'd like to welcome Carmen Baskoff. She joined the MPO as a transportation planner in the Multimodal Planning and Design Group. She was most recently a community planner at US DOT Volpe Center, where she focused on electric mobility, complete streets, micromobility, and smart grant program support. Also, very interestingly, she is a former NPR producer working on covering urban policy, transportation, and sustainability. And she's also done some research with the UN on human trafficking. So Carmen has a Master of Science in Urban Studies and a Bachelor's in History and Human Rights from Yale. And she's proficient in Spanish, French, and Arabic if you want to practice any languages with her. So Carmen, are you able to unmute and just briefly put your face to your name?
Yeah, this is Carmen. It's great to meet everyone.
Carmen. Okay, and then lastly, we'd like to celebrate a shift in a role. You may or may not have interacted with Roger Roy to date. He recently has joined the Travel Model Development Team, or TDM team, on just earlier this month as a model network specialist. This is a new role that we've developed under the manager of model development, but he has actually been with the MPO for a number of years. He's been managing and supervising the MPO's field data and collection staff. So we're excited to transition him into this new role as he brings quite a bit of experience with MPOs, beginning as an air quality monitor at MAG in Phoenix, and then transitioning into travel demand modeling, focusing on conformity analysis and long-range planning. So I will not have him introduce himself, so we'll move on to the next slide. All right, so in announcements, I wanted to bring up a soon coming up event that I'm very excited about. We were invited to represent I was invited to represent specifically the Boston Region MPO at an invitation-only peer exchange, which is being held in St. Paul, Minnesota on August 5th. It is being hosted jointly by AMPO and AASHTO, that's the National Association for MPOs, and the National Association for State Highway and Transportation Officials, and specifically AASHTO's Center for Environmental Excellence. And they are jointly hosting, and then AASHTO is sponsoring about 8 to 10 MPOs and states joining this peer exchange with one leader from an MPO and one leader from the state to discuss strategies for improving collaboration around MPOs and DOTs on major projects like highway reconstructions and transit lines. So the MassDOT leader who is going to be attending with me is John Bouchard, who sits here on this board as a deputy chief, and he'll be representing MassDOT, and I'm looking forward to going to this event with him and seeing what we can learn together. Next slide. And then finally, I just wanted to highlight that the APA's Massachusetts Planning Summer 2025 publication, which is an annual publication that comes out, it featured an MPO staff member, Cal Casiglio, in an article about clearing the path towards safer bike lanes. So hopefully we'll post this link in the chat, or else I'll post it after I finish talking. But you may also notice when you look at this publication that one of our board members, Melissa Tentopoulos, is also featured for receiving APA's Economic Development Division's Donald E. Hunter Award for Excellence in Economic Development. So you can congratulate her as well. Next slide, please. All right, so in terms of an engagement update, next slide. So we are still conducting engagement for the draft Vision Zero action plan, which you heard about at the last meeting. The official 30-day public review period is going to conclude at the end of the month on July 27th. But we are going to continue engagement throughout the summer, even after that date, to make sure we've been able to reach people and communities throughout the region, and also so that we can help build awareness about this Vision Zero action plan. But we ask you all as board members and anyone attending to help us publicize that the draft action plan is out for public comment and make sure that we get feedback from your communities. If you have questions, you can reach out to Allie Clayman, aclayman@ctps.org, or also we're collecting feedback at a generic website or generic email address that's visionzero@ctps.org. Next slide, please. Okay, next slide. So for today's agenda, we have several different UPWP related items. The first two are related to the current existing FFY 2025 UPWP. There will be an amendment and an administrative modification, and Olivia will describe the difference between the two of them. But essentially, the amendment, which would require a vote from this board, is part of a typical practice we have each year to look at and reallocate the dollars, the available dollars in the UPWP to which line items it's most needed. Things change throughout the year, and so we typically revisit and make sure that our budgets are matching what the needs are for the remainder of the year. There are a few other items in the amendment that Olivia will also cover. And then she will talk about an administrative modification, which is to separately from the above amendment, repurpose funding within the direct support UPWP line item, in this case specifically to consultant support of the Vision Zero work. Then we'll have a request to review public comment and endorse, if the board feels willing, the new FFY 2026 UPWP. And last week, I'll say that the UPWP committee reviewed all of these items and voted to recommend bringing them to the board. We'll have an update from the MBTA. Members of the policy and strategic planning team will present on ongoing and planned MBTA efforts, including specifically working with municipal partners. And then I will present again to give an update on the TIP process engagement and readiness committee, also known as the TIPper committee, the activities and their continued role in supporting MPO decision making. And then we'll have finally a presentation from MassDOT, I believe our own Derek Cravat, about the MassDOT Municipal Planning and Support Local Early Stage and Actionable Planning Program. So a mouthful, but I think it's the MPS LEAP program. Next slide, please. So the next meeting will be held on August 7th. One of the things we hope to discuss to you at that meeting is an update on the launch of the Community Advisory Council, if we have been able to hold the first meeting by then. We'll have other items as well. In addition, it's not on the slide, but I wanted to just remind you that our annual meeting is coming up in November. And an email just went out in the last 24 hours or so to board members to ask you to save the date on November 13th at 1 p.m. and also ask you for topics that you'd like to be considered for having covered at the annual meeting. That is it. David, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Tegan. Any questions for Tegan? Seeing none, next item on the agenda is public comments. Is there anyone from the public who would like to comment at this time? If so, please raise your hand. Seeing none, next item on the agenda is committee chairs reports. Do we have any? Okay, then, oh wait, Jim Rowe?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and sorry for the delay in getting my hand up there. The most recent meeting of the TIP Process Engagement and Readiness Committee was around a month ago on June, I think it was 12th, and it featured, among other items, a debrief of this year's TIP development process. Out of that, one conversation that arose was the role of the committee in TIP development. The committee did not make a recommendation about its own role, and instead, after some discussion, it unanimously recommended that the full board take up this topic at a future meeting. So I'd like to thank the chair, vice chair, and staff for teeing that up for us today. And I also thought it would be helpful to summarize a little bit of the discussion that did take place at that committee meeting. And with a thank you to Adriana for preparing some really comprehensive meeting minutes, which saved me from rewatching that section of the conversation. So first, several members expressed that they did not expect the full board to take up TIP committee recommendation without a thorough scrutiny. Rather, they expected the full board to kind of closely examine and critique the recommended scenario alongside all other scenarios that staff had prepared. Another member suggested that the committee refrain from creating any new tip scenarios that would add or remove specific projects from the scenarios that staff had prepared in advance. This would be in keeping with the committee's current practice. Another member suggested that having the committee select a preferred scenario among those prepared by staff helped to move the full board deliberations along by giving the board something to react to and discuss, sort of focusing our attention. And then finally, another member recalled some full board deliberations before we had the tip committee lasting 8 to 10 hours. I have not attended one that long, and I'm impressed that folks kind of persevered through that. They also suggested that quarterly readiness days could be another opportunity that staff have already kind of done some work to provide for kind of information sharing about project cost and readiness. This member also kind of touched on, the importance of project proponents attending those sessions, so we can all, learn from that interaction. I look forward to hearing the perspectives of additional board members during the discussion today. And then finally, I'm happy to share that our next TIP committee meeting is going to be this coming Thursday, July 24th. At that, we expect to further discuss 2 different proposals that staff have brought forward. One is a set of readiness guidelines for this upcoming cycle, and the second is an approach to project rescoring. I feel both of these topics would be of interest to many board members, and so I encourage everyone to consider attending, whether or not you're like an official member or not. We always welcome folks to attend and participate. I'll also reiterate that Ethan and Adriana had offered to meet with any MPO member that would like to discuss these proposals during their TIP office hours. And I'll have them or myself put in the link to those. And then personally, will say that I'm happy to take any questions, and we'll put my own contact info in the chat. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jen. Any questions for Jen? Seeing and hearing none. Chris Clem.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everyone. This is Chris Clem from MassDOT's Planning Office. The UPWP committee met last Thursday, and we reviewed each of the 3 UPWP items you see on the agenda today. And the committee voted unanimously on both of the action items for those to be recommended for the MPO's endorsement today. And I expect the committee will meet once more before the end of the fiscal year to do a sort of debrief and look back at the development process for the FFY 2026 UPWP. That is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions for Chris? Seeing and hearing none. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of May 15th, 2025. Can I get a motion in a second to approve the minutes? And please state your name for the record when making a motion. Eric Barassa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Eric Barassa. I will make a motion to approve the May 15th meeting minutes.
Thank you. Tom Bent.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Any comments, changes, questions, or suggestions? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Certainly. Starting with David Moeller,
Yes.
John Bouchard,
John Bouchard, yes.
Sandy Johnson,
Sandy Johnson, yes.
Tyler Terasi,
Tyler Terasi, yes.
Sarah Lee,
Sarah Lee, I'll abstain because I didn't attend.
thank you. Once again, Eric Barassa,
Eric Barassa, yes.
Brian Kane,
Kane, yes.
Jen Rowe,
Jen Rowe, yes.
Matt Moran,
Matt Moran, yes.
Jay Monty,
Jay Monty, yes.
Jen Martin,
Jen Martin, yes.
John Alessi,
John Alessi, yes.
Aaron Shute,
Erin is voting, she's got background noise, so she put in the chat that she's voting in favor of the minutes, but doesn't want to bother us all with her background noise, so please record her as voting in favor.
Thank you, and will do. Acknowledged. Tom Bent,
Yes.
Nate Ryan,
I will abstain because I was not there.
Roger that. Dennis Giambetti,
Dennis Giambetti, yes.
Darlene Wynn,
Darlene Wynn, yes.
Rachel Benson,
Rachel Benson, yes.
Steve Olenoff.
Steve Olenoff, yes.
That motion carries, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is UPWP Amendment number 3. Olivia?
Sorry, David,
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Wait, hold on, Olivia. Brian's got his hand up. Brian?
can I just, I tried to raise my hand after Jen's presentation. Can I be recognized out of order for a question?
Of course.
Thank you. I guess the question is both for you and for Jen Rowe.
Well, then I'm not going to recognize you, Brian. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, David, you're very shady today, so I can't recognize you either. But just today. How do you plan to handle that committee's request to consider what it does, how it does it, and when do you want to have that discussion, if at all?
So that discussion's actually on this agenda. I believe it's agenda item number 11. And the MPO will have a discussion, and then we'll talk about what we want to do going forward. And it may, Brian, this may take more than one meeting's worth of discussion, but we're teeing it up this, I think Tegan is going to make a general presentation, and then we're going to have a discussion. Is that correct, Tegan?
That is correct.
Well, you're always one step ahead of me, David. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Actually, Brian, Tegan's one step ahead of all of us, but thank you. Next item. So we're now on to UPWP Amendment 3. Olivia?
Hi, having a little tech difficulty, so I think my audio and video aren't matching up. So apologize if you can't see me, but good morning. My name is Olivia Sakosha. I am the program manager for the Unified Planning Work Program. And today I will be discussing Amendment 3 to the fiscal year 2025 Unified Planning Work Program. I know there are 2 different UPWPs that we have on our agenda today, so I just wanted to clarify that this one is the amendment I'm talking about now is for the current UPWP for fiscal year 2025. And if we could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So this amendment includes 3 different items: budget reallocations, an updated description of the multimodal mobility infrastructure program, and the addition of 2 grant awards into the appendix of the document. And for context, amendments to UPWPs are triggered when budget transfers between UPWP tasks are equal to or greater than 25% of the overall task budget. So that is the reason why, or at least one reason why we have an amendment here today. And if we go to the next slide, please. I will first talk about those budget changes. The UPWP is the MPO's annual work plan, and it describes the tasks that staff will execute in a given fiscal year and the budgets that we've set for those tasks. Around this time each year, budget modifications are made to the current UPWP primarily for 2 different reasons. One being that staff monitor our program and project budgets throughout the first 3 quarters of the year and may need to propose a budget change as program needs evolve. And if
Sorry, I think we're having audio challenges. I will message and report back.
Hey, just advance her slide. Somebody else can handle this. Me, Tegan, Chris. No, no. Olivia's having technical difficulties. That happens. So, as Olivia said, this is a standard yearly process where we get to the end of the fiscal year. Tegan and her staff do a review of what's underspending, what could use more spending. They balance the budget. They go through the UPW committee, which has already recommended this. So you can see here the line items that are being reduced and the line items that are being increased, and it all adds up to zero. Next slide, please. There's the zero. Leave this up for a minute so everybody can see the slides. Brian, you got a question?
I was gonna move approval if you were ready for that.
Well, let me get to the last slide so we can be sure that there's nothing else Olivia had teed up that we need to cover. But thank you, Brian. Next slide, please. Excellent. Excellent. So that is the last slide. And any questions that I or staff or Chris Quim can answer? Seeing none, we need a motion and a second. Are we approving this to go out for public review, or are we trying to waive public review and approve? Okay, so we want to waive, the motion is to waive public review of this adjustment and approve it today. Can I get that motion? Brian Kane.
So moved, sir.
Thank you. Is there a second? Eric Barassa.
Sorry there. Eric Barassa, I second that motion.
Motion has been made and seconded. Please call the roll.
David Muller,
Yes.
John Bouchard,
John Bouchard, yes.
Sandy Johnston,
Sandy Johnson, yes.
Tyler Tarasi,
Tyler Tarasi, yes.
Sarah Lee,
Sarah Lee, yes.
Eric Barassa,
Eric Barassa, yes.
Brian Kane,
Kane, yes.
Jen Rowe,
Jen Rowe, yes.
Matt Moran,
Matt Moran, yes.
Jay Monty,
Jay Monty, yes.
Jen Martin,
Jen Martin, yes.
John Alessi,
John Alessi, yes.
if the chair is comfortable via chat, I would acknowledge Erin Schutz. Just
Yeah, Erin Schutz is still having trouble with background noise. She texted in the chat that she would vote to approve both the waiving of the process and this amendment. So for the record, without objection, show her voting yes. Unless anybody has an objection.
reflecting
All right, go ahead, David.
reflecting on the record. Thank you, David. And going next to Tom Bent,
Tom Bent, yes.
Nate Ryan,
Nate Ryan, yes.
Dennis Giambetti. And Dennis has sent a prior notice. He will be back. So we'll record that as a non-vote there. Darlene Nguyen.
Darlene Nguyen, yes.
Thank you. Rachel Benson.
Rachel Benson, yes.
Steve Olenoff.
Steve Olenoff, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. And I should note for the record that this slide, I didn't cover this slide, but this slide includes the two new projects we added to the appendix because we were successful, not we MassDOT, but members of the Boston MPO were successful in getting some additional grants awarded that are planning grants. Next presentation, please. And I believe Olivia is still having technical difficulties, and I think Tegan's going to handle this one. But I would like to say for the record, Olivia, great job with your slides, and I'm sorry you're having difficulties with your audio. So the next item on the agenda is a UPWP administrative modification, and I believe Tegan, you'll take this one on.
Yes, I will. I will work with Olivia's talking points. That's why we do that in advance. So thank you. All right. So on behalf of Olivia, I'll present on administrative modification that's proposed to you all. It does not require an action from the board. We wanted to present the information to the board. Next slide, please. So we make administrative modifications, or they can be made to the UPWP for minor changes, and that includes marginal changes to task descriptions, project timelines, activities, and those sorts of things. We do present those changes to the committee, as was previously reported, and to the full board but they aren't required to have a vote of approval or public comment period. The recommended modification that we are making will revise one task description within our direct support UPWP line item. A portion of those funds are allocated to consultant support on various MPO projects that we identified previously in the UPWP, and some of those are funded using deobligated PL funds from previous years. So we're asking the board to just know and understand, not vote on, is that we're reallocating $100,000 of those funds to hire a consultant to continue to exist with the Vision Zero work. That work was, the funding was originally allotted to doing some rebranding and identity initiative for the MPO, which I had reported previously we were not going to be moving forward with. And so we're proposing reallocating it to be able to continue this Vision Zero work, given the expiration of the previously awarded grant at the end of the month, last month. In this work, we'll do things like we'll work with a consultant to develop an interactive dashboard that's designed for municipal partners to visualize crash data, high injury networks, safety trends and profiles, and suggested countermeasures and assistance, as well as assistance with updating the Vision Zero action plan using feedback that we receive from our stakeholders. That is all I have, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them.
I'm sorry, I forgot to take my audio off. Yes, any questions for Tegan? Seeing none, can I get a motion and a second to approve the WP?
No need for an action.
What? Oh, no
There's no need for action.
Oh, that's just a heads up. Thanks, Tegan.
Yeah.
My mistake. Next item is the UPWP 2026 UPWP endorsement. I see Olivia re-entered. Is her audio working? If not, Tegan, can you handle this one?
Yes, I can if it's not working.
Can anyone hear me?
We can hear you even better than we could before. So let's try, Olivia. I'd hate for you to miss out on this one. Oh, we can see you too. There you go.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Sorry about all of that. Happy to finally have
No
things.
worries. It happens to everybody, and thanks for the
Thank you. Okay, so I will now be presenting on the fiscal year 2026 Unified Planning Work Program, which is our upcoming UPWP that we've been developing throughout the year, and it is set to go into effect at the beginning of the next fiscal year, which starts on October 1st. So today I'll be going over the public comment period and some of the changes, the small changes that we've made to the draft document during that time. Next slide, please. So the MPO successfully conducted a 21-day public comment period on the draft fiscal year 2026 UPWP, which, just as a reminder, describes the tasks that MPO staff plan to execute in the upcoming fiscal year. The public comment period officially concluded on June 27th, and during that time, the draft document was promoted through the MPO's email listserv, on our social media accounts, was highlighted on our website, and also shared through Metropolitan Area Planning Council's monthly newsletter. We received one comment during this time. If we go to the next slide, I've listed it out here. This commenter had a few suggestions, brief suggestions for work that they'd like to see MPO staff do, including legalizing single-stair housing for narrow lots, implementing congestion pricing, building a new rapid transit access as part of the Tobin Bridge rebuild project, and requesting more public information about the regional rail and red blue connector projects. And so MPO staff responded to this comment by explaining or clarifying rather the type of work that the MPO does. We provided some context around the Tobin Bridge project and the Red Blue Connector project, and provided some information for this commenter to reach out to those project teams. And we do plan to share this comment with our partner agencies where relevant. Next slide, please. And now I'll just briefly touch upon some of the changes that we made to the document, the majority of which are just correcting typos and formatting issues. I did want to note that we also changed the name of the Regional Transportation Advisory Council when we referenced it in the document to the Community Advisory Council, since this new group will be active when this fiscal year 2026 UPWP goes into effect in the fall. And lastly, we also made some minor language changes in certain sections of the document just to improve clarity. Next slide, please. So that really sums up the kind of the status of the final fiscal year 2026 CPWP. We're happy to answer any questions, and after a discussion, we are recommending that the board vote to endorse the final 2026 Unified Planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. Any questions for Olivia? Seeing none, can I get a motion and a second to approve the UPWP as presented today? And please state your name for the record when making a motion. Eric Barassa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Eric Barassa with MAPC. I'll make a motion to approve the federal fiscal year 2026 UPWP.
Thank you. Brian Kane.
Thank you. One of my great pleasures in life is seconding any motion from Eric Barassa.
Yeah, it's nice to have the two of you working together again. Please call the roll.
Certainly. David Moeller,
Yes.
John Bouchard,
John Bouchard, yes.
Sandy Johnston,
Sandy Johnson, yes. And from a former UPWP manager, Olivia and staff, excellent job with the process and great job sticking with it today despite the technical difficulties.
Thank you, Sandy. Tyler Tarasi,
Tyler Tarasi, yes.
Sarah Lee,
Sarah Lee, yes.
Eric Barassa,
Eric Barassa, yes.
Brian Kane,
Kane, yes.
Jen Rowe,
Jen Rowe, yes.
Matt Moran,
Matt Moran, yes.
Jay Monty,
Jay Monty, yes.
Jen Martin,
Jen Martin, yes.
John Alessi,
John Alessi, yes.
Eric, Chair, could we also recognize Aaron Schutz's written motion?
Yeah, if Aaron, so David, has Aaron did Aaron sit a chat on this one?
Aaron has. I think Aaron may just, in terms of language, said budget update instead of the
Right, so that was the last one.
UPWP
I don't think she sent a chat on this one, so just go on.
Roger, thank you. My mistake. Next is Tom Bent,
Yes.
Nate Ryan,
Nate Ryan, yes.
Dennis Giambetti,
Dennis Giambetti, yes.
Darlene Nguyen,
Darlene Nguyen, yes.
Rachel Benson,
Yes.
heard, thank you. Steve Olenoff.
Steve Olenoff, yes.
This motion also carries, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the MBTA update. I believe Laura Gilmore, Laura Bressford, and Sandy Johnson are going to present, and I think Laura's first. Laura Gilmore first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm actually going to kick us
Sandy's
off, and then I will be handing it over to other folks. Good morning. For those who don't know me, and if actually we could go to the next slide. I think staff have our slides. Thank you. My name is Sandy Johnson. I'm the Deputy Director of Regional Transit Planning at the MBTA and one of the leads for MPO representation for the MBTA here. I'm joined by a number of other relevant MBTA staff to MPO work. Laura Gilmore, who you're familiar with, our Senior Director of Strategic Transit Planning, our special guest, Laura Brelsford, who's our Assistant GM for System-Wide Accessibility, and she's going to be talking a little bit today. And I also just want to recognize Josh Ostroff, who many of you know, who supports MPO work, especially around capital projects, and Lindsay Heffernan, our Chief of Policy and Planning, is also here today for this presentation. And we're going to talk a little bit about how we do long-range planning at the MBTA, what we're up to, and how we can engage with the MPO, with member municipalities and other groups who might be interested. This presentation has been a long time coming. Thank you to the chair and to staff for helping us get on the agenda. We're very excited to talk through this a little bit today. If we could go to the next slide. just want to give a little bit of an agenda here, what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk a little bit about the MBTA's strategic direction, the moment we find ourselves in. Then we're going to talk a little bit about our kind of recent or upcoming plans, the full T ahead midterm service priorities work, the program for mass transportation, and the mobility integration plan. Going to get a little bit of detail about each of those, and then talk a little bit about how we can all work together to collaborate on long-range planning, and also some shorter-term, more tactical items. At this point, I'm going to hand it over to Laura Gilmore to talk through the next several slides.
All right, thank you, Sandy, and thank you all for having us here today. So as Sandy said, I'm just going to give a little context on where we are today and then jump into some of our longer range planning, because I know there was some interest when we were asked to do this presentation in understanding, where's the T headed in terms of our strategic direction. And I think we are sitting at a really important moment for us to have this conversation. I think many of you follow the news. I think many of you are very familiar with the T's work. But the T over the past couple of years, much in part due to our general manager, Phil Eng, has committed to a new direction and a new approach. And I've just got some bullets on the slide here about what that approach is. We are really focused on doing business differently. We are looking for efficiencies in our own work, trying to make the most of the funding we have, trying to rebuild trust with the riding public and with the community at large, and focused on delivering meaningful projects that improve the experience for the transit riding public. We'll talk about some examples of where we have made some significant progress on that, but that is a major part of our focus in the last couple of years, and it will be going forward. With that, and I think this presentation is a piece of it, we really want to take the opportunity to reinforce what the T has accomplished and our benefit to the communities that we serve. We know we have some significant financial needs, which we do talk to this MPO about annually with our CIP presentation. So we want to be clear about what those costs are and what it costs to do the work that you all want to see done. And part of this presentation is about showing you more about where we are headed. So if we can go to the next slide. So part of doing that business differently is about delivering results. And we have, thanks to our general manager's direction, been able to deliver some significant progress that is showing us moving in the right direction. I think many of you ride our rapid transit system and are aware that over 2023 and 2024, we embarked on a program to eliminate all 191 speed restrictions on our heavy and light rail system and accomplish that. If you've been on the heavier light rail system recently, I think you'll find it is moving much more quickly, and we've got some great statistics on how much more service we are able to deliver today because of those investments that were made. We also, in the last year, made 11 additional stations fully accessible. There was a lot of coverage in the papers in the last couple of years about the importance of the T's workforce to delivering on the service that we all want to see. And we're happy to report that we have exceeded our hiring goals, raising our headcount from about 5,700 in FY23 to 7,000 in FY25. And that all is focused on delivering service to our customers. We also launched recently our income eligible reduced fares program, which is providing reduced costs for eligible riders on all MBTA modes. It's half price fares. So we're just starting to see the impact of that program. And we are very excited that recently there was legislation passed that will enable bus lane enforcement and bus stop enforcement by cameras. So there is some great progress going at the T. We're going to talk a little bit more about some of the things that are upcoming, some of the places where you all can engage with us to continue this good work. Next slide. So now that we have made such significant progress rebuilding the T and stabilizing our system, we are putting a lot more focus into where do we want to go in the future, because we know there's more work to do. And our strategic plan, which we will show on the next slide, as well as MassDOT's long-range plan Beyond Mobility, both emphasize some of the same key areas about how we want to support our service, which I'm showing here. Maintaining a safe system, enhancing reliability, increasing connectivity, addressing the threats to our system and focusing on resilience, and building a workforce for the future. But in order to achieve all of those outcomes, we need to focus on, yes, improving the system today, but also thinking about what we want to deliver in the future. Next slide. So I know we had a question when we were asked to do this presentation about what is the T's strategic direction. And you can find the full document on our website, but what I'm showing here is just some highlights from the MBTA's strategic plan, which was released a couple of years ago. So our mission, which has not changed, our vision, and then our values and our 8 goals that we are working towards. These are the really big picture directions that the T is headed. Next slide. And then in addition to, in order to build out that strategic plan, we recently developed what we are calling Full T Ahead, which is a future vision for service. So that really drills down on those service elements of our strategic plan. And what's interesting about this plan is we really, we developed this with our staff and our leadership, but the focus is on building on our successes and making public transportation the preferred way to travel. And we asked our staff in developing this to really, focus on their own experiences as riders and focus on the experience of our riders, to make sure that we're coming up with actionable results that increase ridership for all of our modes. And so this is a document that's going to help us track our progress and continue to tell the story of the T's work and continue to, restore the trust of the riding public. What we have at the bottom of the screen here, these little icons, are just some of the cross-cutting important areas of focus in this document. We will, I think Sandy is going to put the full presentation about Full T Ahead that our general manager gave to the board in the chat, so you can reference it. And there is a breakdown for each of our modes that says, for commuter rail, where do we want to head? For bus, where do we want to head? But the cross-cutting themes are, we want to provide reliable all-day frequent service, timely and appropriate maintenance with less rider impact. We're focused on accessible, safe, and modernized multimodal system, which you'll hear more about today. We're focused on real-time communication and information for our customers, and we want a transit network that serves changing needs and builds for the future. Next slide. So take a look at what Sandy put in the chat, but we gave just a couple of highlights here today. Just some of the things that we are thinking about in this vision for the future for each of our modes. And this is, these are improvements that are going to take us some work to get there. But, we need a vision and we need a direction for us to head. And this is some exciting improvements that we are going to work towards as staff of the MBTA. Next slide. And I think here I'm handing it to Sandy to talk a little bit more about a specific way that you all can engage in helping us set the future direction.
Yes, thank you, Laura. So another of the major initiatives that we're working on, looking even a little bit further afield than these Full T Ahead service of priorities, is the program for mass transportation. I know some of you are familiar with it. I know Brian Kane, you are the PMT's biggest fan. This is an initiative that's being project managed by our friends at MassDOT's Office of Transportation Planning, specifically Jonathan Church, who I believe is on the line with us today. And we here on the Policy and Strategic Planning team are kind of the MBTA slide client. If we could go to the next slide, please. So what is the PMT? Basically, the Program for Mass Transportation is a long-standing, since the 1960s, requirement in the MBTA's enabling legislation that directs the MBTA to create a long-term priority setting document with a 25-year outlook. It's a really good opportunity for us to highlight progress and priorities in a regularly produced public-facing document. It produces a fiscally unconstrained universe of capital projects from which we can develop our 5-year CIP. And it's a really important tool for public engagement about what our constituents, including the MPO and the public, of course, think about is what's important for the MBTA to invest in over the long term. A few statutory requirements to be aware of. The PMT needs to be reviewed by the MBTA Advisory Board. It needs to be shaped and implemented through the CIP. It needs to be developed in consultation with our regional transit authorities, executive branch offices in the environmental and housing spheres with MAPC, and other relevant entities. Interestingly, the MPO is not mentioned because the language in the statute actually predates the development of the Boston Region MPO. And it needs to be reviewed not less than every 5 years. The previous Program for Mass Transportation was Focus 40, which came out in 2019, pre-COVID, a very different world. We could go to the next slide, please. So in thinking about how we do long-term planning, all of the different plans that are out there from MassDOT, from the MPO, from the MBTA, from MAPC interact. And we're thinking about the contributions that each of them make to what needs to go into this 25-year kind of goal and vision setting framework. So we're thinking about our own strategic plan, which Laura mentioned and which we put in the chat, the full T-ahead service priorities, because we believe really strongly that a vision for what we should be spending capital funding on should be informed by the service that we want to put on the road and on the rails, and on specific modal plans like rail vision and bus network redesign that have been developed over the last several years. Then, of course, we have inputs like the MPO's long-range transportation plan. We're already in conversations with MPO staff about how to coordinate these long-range planning efforts. MassDOT's Beyond Mobility plan, which has some really important statewide goals and objectives and frameworks for evaluation, and other Commonwealth's policies and plans, because transit is so important to how we think about climate goals, how we think about housing goals, economic development, safety of the roads, all of these things. This will all feed into the PMT, and then the PMT will kind of shape MBTA investment decisions as expressed through the 5-year rolling CIP, very similar structure to the MPO's TIP down the line. Next slide, please. In terms of where we are right now, as I mentioned, Office of Transportation Planning is project managing this. We have a consultant team on board, just had our kickoff with them, and there's going to be significant public engagement involved in this project for a whole year, starting this fall, running into fall 2026. There's going to be an external working group. We're still working on the shape of that a little bit. It's going to be public meetings. There's going to be pop-up events and social media and web presence. And we're really looking forward to kind of coordinating that public engagement effort with other ongoing public engagement efforts, including those run by the MPO and municipalities. We totally welcome conversation about how we can kind of work together on these different things. And then we're expecting a final work product really at the end of calendar year 2026. And just to point to the graphic on the bottom a little bit, kind of some of the tasks involved here. There's going to be a state of the system report, some work on existing conditions, and taking an objective kind of reality-based look at this, at how the MBTA system is functioning, what the investment needs are, setting objectives and priorities based on all of the plans that you've heard about today, a needs assessment, setting up an evaluation framework, and of course, evaluating future funding. Even though this is an unconstrained plan, we all know that we're in a period of significant financial stress and uncertainty and need to be thinking about what things might look at, while also acknowledging this is a 25-year plan and none of us know where we're going to be in 25 years. And then we'll end up putting out a work document toward that end of 2026. This is something we look forward to engaging with you on more in the future, more to come. And at this point, I'm going to hand it over back to Laura to talk through our shorter term mobility integrations plan.
All right, if we can move to the next slide. So this is a report back on something that we talked to the MPO about a couple of years ago now. We partnered with CTPS staff a couple of years ago to do some research on how different transit agencies were thinking about connections between modes and different ways to encourage those connections, either through through physical connections, through infrastructure, et cetera. So CTPS did some important level setting and precedent research for us, and we have taken that and progressed that work through conversations with MBTA staff and partners into a plan that we are hoping to release fairly shortly. So you are getting the preview here of what we are calling our mobility integrations plan. And if we can go to the next slide. So this is an exciting piece of work for us. And this mobility integrations plan is really about understanding that the T is a multimodal system, and that we need to emphasize both the connections between the modes that the T operates, but also it also builds on the connections between other modes and providers that connect into the T system. So in this plan, we are thinking about a wide range of types of connections, physical connections, service connections, fare connections. We're thinking about mobility hubs, ideas for fares and service bundles. And we felt like it was important for the T to do some thinking about connectivity across modes, because so much of our system, while we are set up in a way that, you know, our staff are organized by modes, we know that connectivity between modes is a theme that comes up in all of our internal planning and in our conversations with partners. And we know that 15 to 30% of our trips, depending on the mode, involve some sort of a transfer. And we know that most of our commuter rail stations, more than half of them, as well as almost all of our heavy and light rail stations, are locations that have connections to some other MBTA mode. We also know that many of our stations provide connectivity to other providers, such as to the regional transportation authorities. So we know that all those connections exist, but previously the T has not had a holistic framework to think about how we build those connections, and how to work internally in a multimodal way. So this plan we are really excited about because it will guide our response to integration opportunities and to partnerships. Next slide. So while we have this document that we are going to be putting out shortly, we also know that the T has many connections that exist today. We talked about the physical connections that already exist within our system, but we have already taken a number of steps to proactively build integrations between our modes and to other services. And I just want to take an opportunity to highlight some of those on this slide, because part of what we did with this planning effort was just to catalog where those exist. So we partnered with our colleagues at MassDOT to develop a comprehensive map of service providers. So understanding how the T system connects to some of those other service providers in Massachusetts. Tremendous credit to Sandy for a couple years of work with our regional partners and Keolis to coordinate our regional rail schedules with the RTAs, so that now the RTAs receive our schedules several weeks earlier in order to be able to prepare their own service schedules. We have some connectivity where our passes work on other transit systems. Our paratransit system, the Ride, has partnered with Lyft to provide on-demand paratransit services using Ride Flex, which has been very successful. We completed wayfinding improvements for the 128 Business Council shuttle at Alewife. We have enabled pickup and drop off by RTAs and TMAs at some of our stations. And I would be remiss if I didn't highlight that we received a grant from the Boston MPO that is enabling a modernization of all of our pedal and park infrastructure at our stations. Yes, and Sandy just put in the chat, the Alewife wayfinding was also an MPO funded project. So many thanks to the MPO. So going to the next slide, this is just a preview of some of what you will see when this final plan is released. we have developed a number of recommendations focused both on how the T works internally to create a more multimodal environment, and some opportunities for us to foster integration. And we have organized those into 4 categories. So creating that internal capacity and alignment, opportunities led by the T, where the T can take the lead on improving integration, some recommendations around pursuing partnerships, and then recommendations around fostering integration. Next slide. So that plan we are hoping to have out in the next couple of months, but we are very excited to share the preview and discuss with you in this presentation today. All right, back to Sandy.
All right, thank you, Laura. So we've been talking a lot about different plans and initiatives that we have going on. This is the MPO, when we wanted to talk briefly about how we are going about our coordination with the MPO these days, and not just this MPO, but other MPOs. So if we could go to the next slide as well. Thank you. So, you know, we as a team have been kind of reworking and expanding the MBTA's participation in MPO work over the last couple of years, and we hope that you've seen the results here at the board and in committee meetings and just in our ability to make connections and have dialogue. This is about formal MPO coordination, but we also know that you all play an important role as regional conveners, and we want you to know that we can work with you to kind of reach municipalities and your sub-constituencies as well. How does the MBTA engage with the MPO? Of course, we sit on the Boston Region MPO. When invited, we attend MAPC's sub-regional meetings to share updates from the T and have good conversations, had some excellent conversations in those forums. FTA has been inviting us to participate in certification reviews for this MPO, and increasingly for other MPOs as well. Of course, we have to do formal coordination of our capital investments with MPO tips and long-range plans. And increasingly, we've been collaborating with MPOs going after federal discretionary grants, writing letters of support for each other, and working up ideas together. Really, the core point here is at the bottom. In addition to all the formal roles and coordinations, right? We want to hear more from you on an ongoing basis about the what, the how, the when, and the where we should be having these coordination conversations and working together. We're going to get back to that in a little bit at the end of our presentation. But for a really kind of set of specific examples, I want to hand it over now to our special guest, Laura Brailsford, who's our Assistant General Manager for System-Wide Accessibility, and she's going to talk about accessibility improvements that the MBTA is making and the need for partnership between the T and other entities to work through some of these challenges together.
Sandy, thanks so much. Good morning, everybody. It is great to see so many familiar faces on the screen, but for those that don't know me, I'm Laura Brailsford, and I lead the Department of System-Wide Accessibility at the T. And together, my team and I are solely focused on making the system safer and easier for all riders to use. And we do that by applying the unique lens of people with disabilities and older adults to everything we do. Next slide. And Laura and Sandy were kind enough to invite me today to speak a little bit about some opportunities for ongoing and future support, both with respect to very tangible infrastructure projects, as well as some work we're doing to improve communication and coordination with municipalities on some hot button issues. So starting with those very tangible needs, next slide. I just want to share this is actually a great graph we just pulled together for another discussion. Just for everyone's awareness, when it comes to basic station accessibility, we have come a long way as an agency over the years. We're about to celebrate the 35th anniversary of the ADA next week. And if you look back in 1990, just 22% of our stations were accessible. Today, we're at 83%. And why that is good news, what's even more exciting is that based on our current projections, 5 years from now, by 2030, we will be at 93%. Next slide. But even with those projects that are all fully funded, there is still a lot to do. So the biggest jump we're going to see in the next 5 years is on the green line. By the time we get to 2030, all but 2 of our green line stations will be accessible. The remaining ones will be Hines and Boylston, both of which are extremely complex projects. And we're trying to come up with some creative ideas for moving this forward as we speak. On commuter rail, we've got 7 stations that have been made accessible recently, and 7 more that are coming up in the next 2-3 years. But that will leave 12 stations, many of which are relatively complex. When we think about MPO support, we wanted to zero in on some very, again, very concrete, smaller scale projects that may be great candidates that we may be bringing to you in future conversations. And there's two strong contenders here. One is a set of projects that we're calling short to full high platforms on our commuter rail stations. These would be permanent raised platforms that would serve all open doors of the train. But because of low ridership or the unique topography of the station, they would be very short, anywhere between 100 and 200 feet long, making them much more affordable than our standard full high-level platforms. And 3 great candidates for this solution appear to be Shirley, Islington, and Greenwood stations. And then another great set of projects that we always can use support with is accessibility upgrades at various bus stops. We've made about 400 over the last few years, but there's no shortage of work to do as we're helping out municipalities with sidewalk and curb ramp and crossing upgrades. Next slide. And so this is an example of one of those short full high platforms we just recently constructed and opened at North Wilmington. This one in particular is 200 feet long. Again, these platforms serve all open doors of the train. So there is no inaccessible portion of the platform like we do have on many of our legacy stations. And these projects all included updated audio visual passenger information systems. And then the next slide is just a great before and after of one of our more recent bus stop upgrades. So this was in Lexington, where you can see from the photo on your left, there was no accessible landing pad, certainly no connection between the inbound and outbound stops. So folks were sort of getting left off in the grassy yard there. And so we went in, we worked with the town to construct these short little sidewalks, providing a raised and safe level landing pad, allowing for the ramp to be deployed safely, and built in a dedicated crossing there to make it safe for anybody who wants to get from one side to the other. All right, so those are just some examples of projects that would be great opportunities to consider supporting us as we keep working to advance accessibility across the system. All right, and then next slide. Let's sort of moving into a different category of opportunities for collaboration. Like I mentioned at the outset, one thing we've been working hard at is better coordinating and communicating with municipalities about the support we need from them in order to make sure that our facilities, most generally our bus stops, remain safe and accessible year-round. So I'm going to talk about two topics here. The first is snow removal. The second is bike lanes, both of which have become really hot issues over the last few years. So with snow removal, what we've been working to do is really clearly communicate what goes into making sure that a bus stop is fully accessible after a winter storm. So I think it's no secret that municipalities and the MBTA work to clear sidewalks after a storm. But a couple things are often forgotten. So the curb ramps adjacent to bus stops are often neglected, meaning that somebody may be able to get off the bus, but then cannot get to across the street to their destination. And then the other major issue that we're seeing again and again across virtually all municipalities is that even if the sidewalk is cleared to an adequate width, even if the curb ramps are cleared, cities and towns are not requiring that the snow berm, that there be a path of travel through the snow berm at the front of the bus be cleared. And that's critical when it comes to bus stops, because if that doesn't happen, it means there's no location for an operator to deploy the ramp of the bus. So this is one thing the MBTA works to do at all steps we clear. And we're just trying to raise awareness about this in particular to municipalities, because I think there's just a lack of awareness around how critical this is. And even for folks who may not need to use the ramp to board the bus, certainly climbing over a snowbank to get in or out of a vehicle is not safe for anybody. Next slide. And speaking of snow removal, there is often historically and today a lot of debate about who does what. In the simplest terms, the MBTA about 15 years ago stepped up and volunteered to remove snow from what we're now calling our high frequency routes. So our highest ridership routes, the T contracts with a snow removal company to go out and remove snow immediately following a storm and throughout and following a storm. All other stops generally fall to the municipality for clearance, and within each city and town, their respective snow ordinances typically spell out who is responsible at the local level. The one exception to this, the one other note here is that bus stops with shelters owned or managed by the MBTA or MBTA contractor, those are cleared as part of the shelter contract, even if they're on municipal property. So this is a topic we meet with typically it's the DPW leads of each city and town just before the start of each winter season to have this discussion to make them aware of the support we need. But we thought the MPO might be a really terrific resource for helping raise awareness and get the word out about this. All right, so the other hot topic, which is relative to snow and ice, a much newer issue we are grappling with. Next slide. Has to do with bike lanes, particularly bike lanes adjacent to stations and stops. So there's no secret bike lanes have proliferated in the Boston area over the last decade, which is a wonderful thing to ensure that cyclists have a safe way to get around the area. But this progress has come oftentimes with some serious consequences. And specifically, there are a number of bike lane designs that have introduced some real serious safety concerns, particularly for older adults and people with disabilities trying to access our bus network. By far and away, this is the #1 complaints I hear when I'm talking to riders and I'm at any sort of public meetings. The feedback we hear again and again is, hey, MBTA, it's great you're doing so much to improve accessibility, but I now no longer feel safe to use the bus because I either have to cross an active bike lane, or even worse, there's a bike lane directly in my bus stop. So what we are working on in the short term is really working to just try to make sure that cities and towns, when they are at the earliest stages and planning to design and construct a bike lane, that they reach out to the MBTA and coordinate with our service planning department. The service planning team will then loop in my team and we will collectively provide feedback on how to make the bike lane design, how to prioritize accessibility and safety in the bike lane design, and ideally identify solutions that work for everybody. Longer term, we're just about to start work with MassDOT on a complete refresh of these statewide bike lane guidelines. The forthcoming future document is going to be much more complete streets in nature, focused not just on the safety of cyclists, but also on the safety of pedestrians and those relying on public transit. And I also just want to mention that our official advisory committee on accessibility, RTAG, recently, with some grant funding, created a small working group called Shared Spaces, which also includes a number of cyclist advocacy groups, and have been doing a lot of amazing work to build connections between those two communities and going out and looking for best practices and shared solutions. I also just want to give a plug here. Our external affairs team recently published a webpage for our municipal partners that aims to provide clear contact information to cities and towns regarding what teams they should be engaging with, regarding what issues and what our expectations are on a number of these fronts. All right. And with that, I just want to say big thank you to the MPO. We actually, just as a great update, one of the projects that you significantly supported, I think on multiple occasions, was the Jackson Square elevator project. Construction has officially begun on that project. And so through the funding that you supported, we are not only modernizing the existing elevator that's there, we are constructing a fully redundant second elevator at the station. And work should be progressing as we head into next year and wrapping up in early 2027. So again, these upgrades and this collaboration really makes a huge difference. And we look forward to more of it in the future. Thanks, and Sandy, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Laura, for that really incredibly important and valuable presentation and work. I'm just going to go through and wrap up this presentation pretty quickly in the interests of time. Looking forward a little bit, I want to talk just a little bit about things that we can all work together on, both on a project basis and at a more strategic level. If we go to the next slide. a few early opportunities just coming up in the next year or two, things that we can work together on, and happy to talk about these more in other forums. The Alewife Garage redevelopment, our TOD team has released an RFP for joint development. I'm sure many of you are aware of this. There's also various other planning efforts going on in that area. Look forward to kind of working with municipal partners and regional partners on planning for that very complex and important area. The Fairmount Line electrification pilot, that's going to be put 20-minute electrified service on the Fairmount Line projected in 2028. Lots of work to do with the city of Boston and other stakeholders around that project as well. Very exciting. And then our team has been heavily involved in a very complex planning effort around the Everett, Chelsea area, including the Silver Line expansion idea and various other developments going in that area, as well as thinking about Sweetser Circle. I think Jay is here. Jay Monty and others who have been involved in that. So looking forward to more collaboration there. Next slide, please. All right, not going to go through this in detail again in the interest of time, but there are a number of things that we can all work together on. And what can you, as our regional partners and especially municipal folks, do to help enhance transit in the area and help out the MBTA? You've already heard about some of these, but transit priority on municipal roadways, including automated enforcement, newly legal, and we're working on a program to make that happen. Snow and ice removal, as Laura talked about, frontline staff support, including bathroom access, safe routes to transit for people walking, biking, and rolling, transportation and land use coordination, resiliency and infrastructure and sustainability, and supporting resilient, long-term, sustainable funding for the MBTA. These are all things that we can all work together on and we could really use your support with. Next slide, please. All right. Again, in the interest of time, just to wrap up, some useful MBTA contacts, and we will put this out so that other folks, everybody can know who we are. If you need to talk about general MPO regional planning coordination, that's Laura and myself. For TIP or capital project related items, Josh Ostroff, who's here, is a great contact for that. Laura here for accessibility, and Laura Gilmore and I are very happy to play the role of conveners and to help you navigate the big bureaucracy that is the MBTA if you need to find a particular contact. I know we're short on time. I will defer to the chair and to staff in terms of taking questions. Now, I do want to make the offer that since we are short on time for Q&A, we are happy to bring this conversation to a future transit working group meeting. We thought that would be a good forum for having more informal Q&A as well. So again, Mr. Chair, thank you for the time.
Thank you, Sandy. Any questions for the MBTA at this time? Matt Moran.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And just to say a hearty thanks from myself and all my other colleagues at Boston for the great work that you guys are doing at the T. I think we see it on a daily basis how much the T's improved over the last several years. And I just want to thank you guys for all the efforts. Notably, want to applaud you for all the accessibility work you guys have been doing. I think that presentation alone sort of stood out to me as something that's really been enhanced over the past few years. And also applaud you guys for the staff you've recently hired, some of which you lured away from the city of Boston, which we still resent you for, but they're great additions to your team and happy to see them there. Two quick questions for you guys. One is around Full T Ahead. Just wanted to know, will there be some sort of public process engagement around that? Because it looks like such a great sort of initiative. I think it would be great for the public to know and be able to comment or at least provide some feedback on. And then secondly, would love to follow up on some of the bus stop work and bus stop standards. I know we've been working with you guys for a number of years around this, and would just love to sort of think through data and other sort of crash areas that we could sort of help to mitigate or figure out some solutions to. So throw that out there, and thanks again.
I can take the first part of that, Matt, and thank you for your comments. So Full T Ahead in and of itself is part of our staff strategic plan. And I would view Full T Ahead really as like the general manager's vision for where he wants us to head. But I think the program for mass transportation, which is coming up, is our long range capital plan. And that is, I think, the best opportunity and the best built-in opportunity with public engagement that will help us prioritize those investments and help us kind of frame out what the capital elements are that then allow us to to implement that vision. So I know the general manager has been, certainly out in the public forum, talking in various places with various business groups and communities about his vision. We're happy to, if there's interest, happy to, have to make presentations and discussions about Full T Ahead with any set of stakeholders here. But I think the best forum for talking about the details of, what is most important to your community and how does that fit in with what the T invests in is going to be that program for mass transportation, which Sandy spoke about.
Brian?
I think there was a second piece to that question, though, Mr. Chair, about some of the bus stop improvements. Matt, was there something you wanted Laura Brailsford to respond to there, or?
Sure, I would just say, Matt, in terms of the crash data, this is something, it's a timely question. We've just started working with a few folks in MassDOT to get a better understanding for what data exists out there. So I will reach out to you to figure out if there's a way we can coordinate on that front. That certainly is one of the factors we're looking at for identifying, where things maybe went wrong due to a specific design decision, or just how to identify priorities for changes. So it's a great question.
Appreciate that.
Yeah,
Thanks, Bill.
Brian?
Thanks, David. Since I was name checked by Sandy, I just felt like thanking him and Laura. It's always great to see you, and very much appreciate all the work you do and have done for many years now. This is great effort. Having the staff to do this work has been critical. I applaud the GM and his predecessors for bringing this group of folks together and letting them do what they do best, which is think about how to make public transportation better in the region. And this is a fantastic approach. I love the holistic nature of it, how you're trying to bring everyone together. And just know that all of us here want to work with you, want to see a better T, and we will continue to do all we can to get you the resources you need to make that vision a reality. Thank you, David.
Thanks,
Thanks so
Brian.
much,
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, thank you all very much. Excellent work. Next item on our agenda is an update on the Transportation Improvement Program Process Engagement and Readiness Committee, aka TIPPR. Tegan?
Great, thanks. Thank you, David. Hello again, everybody. I'm glad to be back. In case you're catching up now, I'm the Executive Director to the staff of the MPO. So I'm going to present today just briefly on the TIP Process Engagement and Readiness Committee, which I'll be calling the TIP Committee going forward. It sort of rolls off my tongue more easily. And this is, as was sort of previewed in some of the earlier comments in the committee report from the TIP Committee Chair, this is a follow-up on conversations that have emerged here at the full board level regarding the role of the committee in the TIP development process. So I may echo some of the things that Jen said in terms of a little bit of context, but I just have a brief presentation just to set the stage from the staff perspective, the context for the committee, and the work that they do to support the TIP process and MPO board decision making. So I'll recap just briefly why the committee was created and what it's done to support the current TIP cycle that's wrapping up, and then I'll highlight what the committee members are doing in the very near future, as well as to support the next TIP cycle. So with that, I hope we'll have a common understanding of the TIP committee's role, and I'm happy to engage in any discussion with the board about it. So next slide, please. And the next slide. Sorry, one more slide. I'm not sure if there's a technical difficulty or if there's something missing, but I will start talking. Know what's on the next slide. So the TIP committee was established in the MPO's, there we go, operations plan, which was first published in 2024. And in the operations plan, it defines the standing committees for the Boston Region MPO and defines their role, all of them, as supplemental to that of the full board. with the operations plan emphasizing that the full board has the final decision-making authority. And then at the time when we were talking about the operations plan and the description of committees, a number of the board members advocated for the inclusion of a new TIP committee. Some of that was influenced by board members' past experience on what was established temporarily as a TIP project cost ad hoc committee. But the intent with the conversations is that this new TIP committee was intended to provide an additional forum to the full board meetings to be able to take deeper dives into the TIP development process, what's working, what isn't, as well as much more sort of specifics on project development or project questions as they emerge. The discussion when this establishment of this committee was happening was really in the time frame of general acknowledgement by the board that the scale and staff that the scale of the challenges of the TIP development, particularly related to cost and readiness changes, also related to coordination between agencies and other factors, that these challenges, these escalating challenges, really warranted additional time and attention and was available in board meetings. Next slide, please. There are currently 10 members of the committee. This is actually the same size as the UPWP committee, just for reference. The chair is being filled right now, the chair seat, by Jen Rowe, representing the city of Boston. But in addition to that, the seats are that MassDOT has 2 seats on this committee, one from the planning, Office of Transportation Planning, and the other from Highway Division. There is an RTA seat on the board. This is the rotating seat that is currently held by Metro West Regional Transit Authority. Then MAPC has a seat. The formerly known as Regional Transportation Advisory Council has a seat, which we are holding in case the new Community Advisory Council chair would also like to join this conversation. And then there are 3 at-large and 2 sub-regional seats that are represented. The at-large city or towns are Arlington, Brookline, and Somerville. And then the 2 sub-regions are Metro West and MAGIC, the Minuteman Advisory Group on Interlocal Coordination. Next slide. So what this committee did over the last 26 to 30 development cycle, over the last, I think, 9 or 10 months, the committee met about 6 times on a variety of topics. Essentially, they met to discuss and debrief TIP development. At that time, they actually started the discussions that are going on now about updating the policies related to cost changes and scoring. They further discussed nuances of the challenges for the challenges that project proponents are facing in the development process. They heard from staff and gave feedback into the new TIP dashboard that was developed. And they had very early and in-depth conversations about readiness information, which supported sort of knowledge building before discussing those same issues in the full board forum. And then the next slide, please. So we do anticipate the committee doing similar work for the 27 to 31 TIP development cycle. We expect them to continue to debrief on the process and set priorities for the types of policy and process improvements for the new TIP cycle that they might recommend. One of those top priorities, as requested by both the committee members, but also the full board, and also I believe Jen mentioned this, is around drafting and recommending potential milestones for project cost and project development in each year of the TIP. And that would then influence in the next cycle, potentially projects needing to be rescored or reconsidered, influencing the scenario development process if those milestones are set. So we're working on this now, and the board should expect to see those recommendations for discussion in the fall. And then over the winter and spring, during the sort of the core of the TIP development, we anticipate the committee will continue to work with us, supporting us by discussing emerging issues on specific projects or the program as a whole. Those discussions are informed by the newly sort of implemented quarterly readiness updates that are coming to the board, and it allows them to sort of preview and take deeper dives where needed into some of those issues as they evolve. And then, of course, given the limited time that we have at the board meetings to discuss the scale of the challenges that are facing the projects in the TIP, the committee is intended to provide feedback to staff as we approach developing and then refining scenarios, such as like by requesting additional information or context from a project proponent based on some of the challenges that might be witnessed. And then also during the public comment period for the draft TIP, the TIP committee receives a preview of what's been shared as comments so far, as well as changes that staff are proposing for the draft and final TIPs, which again then comes to the full board for full discussion as well. So just to highlight, the next meeting is scheduled for July 24th at 1:00 p.m. And like all committee meetings and chairs, you will get a report out from the chair of the committee, which again is currently Jen Rowe, following these meetings as they occur. So for the next slide and setting the final stage for any conversation, I just wanted to bring us back to the mandate or purpose, the understanding of that mandate or purpose of this committee in supporting MPO board members as a whole in decision making. Remind us that it's intended to be a supplemental forum where deeper dives into the process and project details can happen. And also it's an important place where increased coordination is able to be fostered between agencies. You can go to the next slide. So I just wanted to thank the committee members for what they are doing, which is volunteering a significant amount of additional time to facilitate the discussion and development of the TIP program. And I know this has always been a challenge for the board members to do in terms of a level of effort. And actually, Jen also brought up that some folks have referenced remembering spending multiple days as the full board all day long discussing project details. So we hope that this is a more efficient and effective way to engage more deeply in the process. And then I also wanted to lastly acknowledge, to set the stage for the conversation, just that you elected to launch this committee during the time of escalating challenges around uncertainty and cost. And since the time that the committee has been created, those challenges have only really increased to the point where for the past 2 years, considering the removal of a project to balance out fiscal constraint has been a very real question to the board. And so we greatly appreciate sort of the additional effort and time and attention spent on trying to understand these issues and how to sort of improve them in the future. But with that, I will defer it back to you, Mr. Chair, and the full board for discussion.
Thank you, Tegan. Discussion? Anyone? Brian Kane.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I was present at the creation of this committee, so to speak, through the operating plan committee, and just wanted to speak a little bit about what I recall as one of the reasons why it was recommended. We'd gone through the TIP process, we'd gone through the meeting every week for hours at a time. I just thought that there was a better way, and many others thought there was a better way to do this. Instead of having cities and towns come to public comments during those meetings to talk about, no, we're actually ready. What John Burchard is saying is wrong. I guess some of us just thought that there was a better way to organize that, and that's where the readiness part of that committee sort of came from, because John is obviously right most of the time. So I felt it was, and we felt it was good to have a place for that to happen. The committee was never envisioned to supplant this board. It was always envisioned to supplement this board. And if it helps to redraft its charge, that's certainly something that I'm willing to help work on. If it helps to define its parameters a little more succinctly, I'm happy to do that. And if it helps to redefine or define what can and cannot be referred to it, I'm certainly happy to do that as well. I do think it has helped streamline the process a little bit. And just certainly wanted to mention that I am willing to help make it better if there is a desire to do that. Thank you very much, David.
Thank you, Brian. Others? Nobody else has a comment on the TIP committee and its role? John Burchard.
Thank you, Brian, for the words. I think I'll break most of the time probably I'll put that on my docket to try and be right more than that. David, I had taken, and I participate in the TIPper committee. I think I've missed one meeting, which I had staff fill in for me due to other activities I couldn't change. But I thought that the TIPper committee, I feel the TIPper committee is a good place to bring in the communities to discuss projects and be specific without taking valuable time away from this board, so that it can be discussed in an open back and forth dialogue. We could spend more time on some specifics. And if I don't have all those answers or my staff who participate don't have all the answers at the TIPper committee, then at least we have some marching orders that we can do some research and come back. So we're making informed decisions and making recommendations to this, to this board. I think it's a valuable resource, and I think it could be less challenging for, or less overwhelming for some communities to participate in a committee level. And again, we can discuss a little bit more openly what some of the issues might be, and the like. So I've found it to be a valuable part of tip development with the Boston MPO. And I echo Brian's comments also. If we want to consider, some reformatting or some modifications to the charge, then, happy to participate with that group to say, what are our real goals and how can we achieve them? Thank you.
Thank you, John. Other comments? Rachel Benson.
Rachel Benson from the Swap Rentham area. I did just +1 to John Bouchard's comment that a lot of communities, they have varying sort of skill levels or experience with the TIP process, and presenting to the TIPper committee can sometimes be a little bit more easily understood if you're getting our points across or what the full board wants to see. So I appreciate that comment. And I only have ever known the TIPper committee. So when I joined the board, so I don't know a life without them. Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron Shute.
Thank you. Just want to, I think, build off of Rachel's comment a bit, in that I think the TIPper committee is for communities a bit more accessible. So it is a place where I think we can be more inclusive and transparent. So I'm hoping that if, we are revisiting the charter and the work plan for TIPper, that we kind of keep that at the forefront. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Tom Bent.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I for one, I actually am not on the TIP committee. Brad is from Somerville, but I've attended all the meetings, and I have to say, and I was one of the ones that were at the old TIP committee meetings years ago that, we had the TIPper days, and, some of those conversations went, long into the day. And I feel like the TIPper committee I think has done an excellent job trying to go through a lot of that information. And it's just another avenue for the municipalities to come forward to, make their case for their projects. And I also found that the TIPper committee was able to help maybe get some feedback from the different state agencies on maybe some misconceptions that they had on their projects. So again, I think it's been an important resource for the full board to have the TIPper committee. And, if some adjustments need to be made, that's fine. But, I for one think that they've done quite a good job during a very difficult time period the last couple of years. But thank you.
Other questions or comments? All right, so I guess now everybody else is coming in who wanted to, I guess I'll comment. So I think part of the reason this issue is on is for those of you who were here at TIP development this year, which I think is all of you. It's not a surprise that both the vice chair and I were surprised and had a concern that the TIP committee was developing a recommended scenario. We still, well, I won't speak for Eric, he can speak for himself. I still believe that is an inappropriate role for the TIP committee. I 100% support the work that the committee's done. Everybody's done a great job. Jen is incredible. I think we need to have a discussion about where their brief begins and where it ends, okay? For our purposes, I think having cities and towns go and have a deeper discussion with a subcommittee is a great idea. I will note for the record that I think the reason it doesn't take as long is because so many towns refuse to participate in our process anymore, okay? We're getting a lot less people interested in the TIP. That's a different issue that at some point we should try to address. But, there's not 20 communities trying to get a project in the TIP anymore. That's part of why it took so long, right? Everybody wanted a tip project. Now people are, for whatever reason, sort of, I guess, don't feel empowered by our process. And I think the tip committee can do a great job in doing that also, by the way, right? I think the tip committee does a great job of communicating out to cities and towns. It's really, I think, probably more comfortable for cities and towns that another city and town is the chair and that there's a lot of city and town representation. I think that's great, okay? I think the work they're doing on process is incredible, right? The whole concept of, well, how ready is ready and what is readiness? I think that's wonderful. Our primary concern, my primary concern, again, I won't talk for Eric. My primary concern is I do not believe it is their brief or a good use of their time or a good use of our time for the TIP committee to take a vote to recommend a particular scenario, right? I believe that most people believe with subcommittees that becomes a rubber stamp. I don't think that's necessarily true, but I believe that's what people believe. And given that there's 10 people on that TIP committee and that they're taking votes, 6 people can ultimately present a recommendation of a recommended scenario to 22 of us. And then the rest of us who maybe disagree have to take the step of saying, well, wait a minute, now we have an official document that we're going to try to take projects out of. We'll do it, right? MassDOT does that, whatever. You know, we're big boys and girls, we'll take our lumps. But I just don't think it's appropriate. Brian?
Thank you, David. If you will, I guess I would just question if the MPO asks any of its subcommittees for a recommendation, would you be opposed to those committees then giving a recommendation?
No, because I believe the tip is different, right? Okay. Number one, I think everybody, well, I won't speak for everybody. A lot of us think it's the most important thing we do every year. It certainly takes up the most amount of our time every year. And it is clearly the thing that the cities and towns we all represent care the most about. Okay. That's not to say the UPWP is not important. That's not to say the operations plan is not important. That's not to say LRTP is not important. They are all very important. But this is the thing that people focus on an annual basis. I think it's different, right? Right? If the UPWP makes a recommendation that has a project in it that you know, MassDOT thinks shouldn't be in it, it's a different issue, or a city and town thinks shouldn't be in it. It's a different issue for us to have a debate about that and try to change that than it is to actually come to an MPO meeting and have somebody have to vote to take a community's project out of a recommended scenario. I don't believe that's the committee's job. That, again, that's just what I believe. Others? Eric Brassa.
Yeah, thanks, David. Yeah, I agree about the committee not recommending like new scenarios. I'm fine if the committee wants to recommend like a project or something like that, but that then at the full MPO, someone would have to proactively like make that as a motion as opposed to something coming to the MPO as this is now a scenario that you know, that we're working from to get to your point of now we have to like proactively like take things off if you didn't agree to. I don't love the idea of having like motions being made at the subcommittee, just because I hate the idea that the committee is the place where cities and towns feel like they need to go to get some endorsement or something. I'd rather it be the place where we have more like conversation about sort of projects and we maybe give direction to staff on like the kinds of projects or policies or something like that, as opposed to being a place where folks feel like they need to like, you know, get their project on a document or something like that. But if the committee, if members want to say like, well, here are 3 projects that we think should be, you know, brought to the full MPO for consideration to be added at the next meeting, I think that kind of a recommendation is okay, as long as it then requires some type of proactive motion and action at that full meeting, if that if you see that distinction.
Thank you, Eric. Brian?
Thanks very much. And Eric, I agree. I think a lot of us agree here. It's really just a question of nuance. So I never envisioned when I was supporting the creation of this committee that it would be a scenario recommender. I saw it more as a gatekeeper to keep projects that weren't ready for inclusion to be sort of not put forward. So I never saw this committee as a place where a group of projects would be recommended or not. But if it wasn't ready according to the experts, then it wouldn't make it to consideration at the board level. Now, the only caveat that I would put to that is if for some reason this board had gone through all of its work and was sort of deadlocked or stuck, or what word you want to use, and it asked the Tipper Committee for a recommendation of a scenario, I don't see any reason why that would be out of bounds. Similar to if we asked the staff or MassDOT or MAPC for a series of recommendations or a recommended scenario. I think that's certainly within play and certainly something that we should not limit ourselves from. Thanks.
Thanks, Brian. John Alessi?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm relatively new to the board. It's been about 2 years, and I think most folks have gone through many tip cycles. I've only gone through 2. I think I joined the board right as like the first tip cycle I was a part of, was ending. But from my experiences, I have found this committee very helpful for someone who's relatively new to the process to understand what the process is. So just want to state that I think that, the committee itself has been, a more approachable way for me to ask questions and understand how things go. So just want to make that clear. But, as someone on the committee, I've understood kind of like the concerns with producing, motions and recommendations. But, without knowing why this committee was created, I've found that, well, it's been my understanding that the committee has made recommendations in order to get something for the full board to react to. And, if making a vote is of concern, I think that's very fair. But I think that maybe still trying to make a recommendation in a way for the full board to react to in order to produce, discussion and maybe get to a point where we're kind of as a full board making a decision, I think is something that would be helpful both, for the full board and for staff as well. And just want to reiterate that I think that, again, without knowing the background of everything too, just making the process improvements, with maybe what Brian was saying as like the gatekeeping, I think could be a very good way of improving the tip moving forward, because as we found from the last cycle, I think we've got, from what I've heard, it seems like it might be broken right now. So trying to kind of make those improvements, I think, starting off with the tip committee right now to present to the full board would be, of value to us all. That's it.
John?
Thanks.
Thank you. Dennis? Jean Betty?
Yeah, just a point of clarification. If the main mission of the Tipper Committee will be about readiness, how would that differ from John's committee, who always looks at readiness, right? Is working around the clock on that. So how would that differ? And what would be the two roles? Is my I need some clarification on that, I think.
Yeah, so I think what it is, Dennis, is I think it's an attempt to have a more detailed discussion of readiness during tip development at a subcommittee level. All, again, the Tipper Committee is a place where certainly project discussions happen, and we could all go back and debate whether we should have that discussion at the MPO again. I'm not sure I would like to have that debate, but it is, yes, John is there, the communities come. I'm and maybe Jen can help with this answer, because I'm not really clear. I don't know what they do about, like, I don't think they pick winners or losers. We believe John and we don't believe Community X, but I'm not clear. Jen?
Sure, yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks for taking
Yeah, I wouldn't frame it in the like winners and losers turn, because as we know, John always
Yeah, I know.
the right answer. But no, in all seriousness, I think what the committee has enabled is just a dialogue, because I think often there's you know, each, like, MassDOT is clearly an entity with many different folks who know different pieces of information, and the municipality and their consultants are usually also multiple individuals, and so kind of having a place that the conversations and the information sharing can happen, and we can at least get to like a same sense of like, here are the facts that we know to be true of this project, and then kind of I think it becomes up. I think in occasion we've then, I think the committee had, I think I'm thinking back to not this past cycle, but the previous one, where I think you'd asked us, the committee, to kind of you'd invite in the project proponents who that we were considering, one of them had to be delayed. So which is it going to be, kind of, and I think from that committee conversation, we were able to actually have the project proponent themselves be like, oh, actually, it wouldn't be the worst thing for us to be delayed because of these different factors. So I don't know that that's always going to work out that nicely, but it at least, I think, helped folks be able to like ask some of those questions and understand them, and not have to like take up a lot of board time doing so.
Thank you, Jen. Other questions, comments, concerns, issues? Kagan, you have something to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of elaborate on the point that there are activities that the committee does throughout the year, and then there's kind of a distinct, where the conversation was really focused on the role of committee was around those several weeks, like right before getting to a preferred scenario by the full board. And I do just want to highlight that because of the complexity of the challenges in readiness and cost changes, and because of the nature of us receiving information at such a tight time frame in terms of being able to bring it to the board, fully understanding it and reaching it out, it has also been extremely helpful for staff to have the TIP committee in place in the interim between board meetings to help guide us towards something that we can put in front of the board as the most realistic option we have to navigate the fiscal constraints in the TIP. So it is getting more complicated and harder for us as staff to work within all of the changing information that happens in that last several weeks. And we have appreciated, again, at the will of this board, as to what you think is the most appropriate in terms of the TIP committee's role. We have really appreciated the ability to further engage with the committee during that very hectic time frame.
Thanks, Megan. Brian, your hand's still up. Are you just left it up, or you have another comment you would like to make? Not hearing from Brian, I'll call on Jim Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to jump in and kind of share maybe some observations I've seen in the context of the committee. I think something that I found, so of course there's a lot of information, and then typically Ethan has a presentation that with a lot of detail, both at the TIP committee and then at the MPO. I think I've appreciated how he's this cycle and the previous, the scenarios that were before the TIP committee remained the same scenarios that were brought to the MPO, or at least like they were, like the TIP committee always sort of like talked about, and I think the first round this cycle, like the I think what we're calling like initial scenarios, where we were trying to decide how to which projects to delay to reach fiscal constraint. There was like a set of 4 scenarios, and the TIP committee kind of saw those 4. There were some, like, some folks expressed a little bit of preference for one or the other, but the committee as a whole didn't kind of get to a place where I could tell any sort of sense of like, oh, here's where this body is kind of leading towards. And so after that meeting, and my committee report kind of explained that was sort of where the committee was. Here's some of the things we talked about. Some folks were talking about 1A, but didn't get to a resolution. And I think at that, I think Melissa might have said like, oh, like, well, like, why weren't you able to? And I was like, well, it was just like really complicated. I think it just, people need some more time to digest. The second time around, so this was, I think the board had selected, or at the full board meeting, 1A is that like initial scenario, and then Ethan had come back with 3 scenarios that would basically take what was 1A and kind of add in, here's where there was surplus, here's different ways you could fill that surplus or not, if we wanted to keep some funding available. And at that, I think, especially with after that, comment from Melissa, I was like, okay, like, let me see, I wonder, can we get to a place where the committee actually is issuing a recommendation, and in that meeting, and maybe it was, and this certainly will take, feedback to my, facilitation. Maybe I pushed us a little bit too far along the line if folks weren't feeling like comfortable by the time we got to a vote. But we did, get I think it was like, I can't remember the exact vote, but maybe like 7-4, 2 against, and like a few abstaining kind of sort of vote. And I think, attempted to portray that in a way that was like sharing the full complexity of that. It wasn't like a unanimous vote, and that is a big difference. I will say, like, I think the things that I've noticed about that time when trying to see if I could, move the conversation in a way that we were getting to some, not necessarily full consensus, but at least like a sense of the group, is that I think and I'm sort of curious, if we do this differently, how it plays out, is that when people do know that they are going to be asked to vote on something, like there's a degree of like reading ahead, making sure you kind of understand the scenarios in advance, doing, thinking through with your colleagues, do we have an opinion one way or the other? And then like in the actual meeting, like a real seriousness of like, what are the kind of pros and cons and whatnot, that I think, and I say sort of as a combination of dialogue and debate and negotiation that happens and kind of gets folks to kind of circle around something as a group. So that would be my only fear about like not like kind of removing the I guess discretion or ability of the TIP committee to kind of issue a recommendation, is if folks feel like they're not gonna need to get to a vote, then is the conversation as rich? Do we get as much from it? And do we kind of contribute as much as we could in terms of like making that board meeting following more efficient? So I do think, I don't think there's a right answer here. It just kind of feels like a, efficiency of board meeting versus, inclusiveness of everyone in that conversation, by virtue of people needing to be there. Because of course everyone can join the TIP committee meetings. We welcome everyone, but everyone is definitely here at the board meetings because we need quorum. So that was long-winded, but I wanted to share my thoughts there. Welcome anyone else in their perspectives.
Thank you, Jen. Other comments, concerns? All right, well, so this isn't an action item. We will continue this discussion and then go from here, I guess. Thanks, everybody. Next item on the agenda is MassDOT's LEAP program. Derek Cravat.
Yeah, thank you, David. Hi, everybody. Derek Cravat here, Manager of Municipal Planning and Support at MassDOT's Office of Transportation Planning, and also former Manager of MPO Activities and Liaison to the Boston MPO. So good to be back and to see everyone again. You can go to the next slide. I'm here today to just share a little bit of information about our new team in MassDOT OTP and also a new program that we are launching called the Local Early and Actionable Planning Program, or LEAP for short. Next slide. So just to give a little background on our new team, we were put in place for kind of two overarching reasons. One, to better coordinate federal discretionary grant activity, and secondly, to provide better support for municipalities generally, both larger goals of the state administration. Given the uncertainty right now related to federal grants, we're really looking to kind of focus more essentially on that other goal of just providing better support for municipalities across Massachusetts. So we're providing technical assistance. We're working closely with groups like the Mass Municipal Association and others and Federal Funds and Infrastructure Office to provide some support for moving projects along. Next slide. And the way that we're looking to really kind of stand this up and put some resources behind it is through this program we're calling LEAP. So the way this will work is that we're going to be procuring consultant support. We'll have 2 consultant teams on board starting in October. And then municipalities will be able to request essentially on-call support through these consultant teams. It's kind of in a pilot stage right now for this first year, so it's funded at $1 million a year total statewide, so it's definitely short money. But we think the value add is that these are services that can be provided for planning activities and early stage design activities, or maybe full design activities if it's a smaller project, to really get projects off the ground and to jumpstart projects, and maybe make the TIP process less intimidating, as David alluded to, if there's concerns about, feeling empowered to get projects off the ground, right? These are things that can be funded through this. So we have a request form that's linked on this slide. It's actually live as of today, and there will be a press release going out about this as well. So you'll see more detail there, but the next few slides just explain some more detail. So you can go to the next slide. This is just a process flow of how this will all work. So there's a Grant Central landing page for this. There's the request form I just mentioned that's linked there. So communities will make requests. We'll review them as a team at MassDOT, and then we'll work with the communities to fine-tune those requests and any estimates or budget considerations. We'll announce which projects we're moving forward with, or we might recommend the community work with a different program, or might we work at a staff level to accomplish the request. And then our consultants will execute the task, and there will also be an MOU that we'll distribute likely to the municipalities to just sort of document the work being done. Next slide. So just to get into a little more specifics on what kinds of things this will fund, things that we've heard that could be barriers for project development include things like conceptual designs, sketch plans, alternatives analyses, right? If the communities knows that there's a problem area, but's unsure of what the proper scope should be, right? These are, early stage or conceptual planning activities that will define that scope for the community then to initiate the project, perhaps with MassDOT, or just set it up to receive other funding through state programs like Complete Streets or MassWorks, or say, federal grants that require some level of design already done. So that's all kind of part of it. And Complete Streets projects, right? We've heard that engineering and design for those projects is a need, especially for rural communities. And so we think that that program being a maximum construction award size of $500,000 is more in the ballpark of what this program can fund when it comes to design. So that's considered eligible here. There's a great example, I think, of a Safe Streets Network strategy that MassDOT produced using consultant support before for City of Lynn. So we've linked that. It's similar to what, an SS4A municipal plan might fund, but just kind of, citywide safety prioritization. Anything related to, helping communities with federal grant applications, especially those technical components like benefit cost analyses, where help is needed. and then some more technical kind of project development engineering activities like safety analysis, traffic analysis. And the next slide lists some of these more detailed items as well. And won't go through line by line here, but you can kind of get a flavor of what we're offering here through this program. Next slide. So just to be clear, we are going to be, once we get requests back, we're going to be working with each regional planning agency, as well as MassDOT district offices to review each request. The program will be open on it's not set up like a grant program where we'll have a deadline and you apply. It's going to be on a rolling basis where we work with communities throughout the year to sort of work with them on requests and then make approvals or point them in a different direction as we go. But to have some kind of structure around it, we are having a sort of committee that will be in place to review requests that we receive with folks from our highway division, regional planning agencies, and district offices. And then we'll kind of have this loose scoring criteria to help score them. So the program is really designed to support communities that do not have capacity to advance projects in-house. So really focusing on rural communities and economically disadvantaged areas that may lack these the ability to advance projects. So these are all part of our scoring criteria, as is this factor on momentum of the project after the assistance is received, and any other local funding constraints. Next slide. I think these next couple of slides are just screenshots of our request form, which you can view online. I won't go through in detail just in the interest of time, but it does ask questions about alternative funding and things like that. And then it's just to say we'll be presenting this at other MPO and JTC meetings throughout the state. We'll be at the Federal Funds Partnership meeting that FFIO hosts next week as well. And at a staff level, we're also inventorying potential locations based on regional plans, right? Like the Boston Vision Zero plan is a great example, right? We can identify things that are a planning recommendation there and use this program to take it from a planning recommendation to, what does it need to get off the ground and into project development, and use the consultant services that we have through this program to do that on behalf of communities. So next slide. And we are broken up regionally. Our new group modeled similar to how the MPO activities team is structured at MassDOT. We have 3 new team members on our staff here, municipal planning and support. Those are Lily Wallace, Noah Harper, and Leah Pickett, assigned to different regions statewide. So they'll be working with communities in those regions with their requests. Next slide. And I think that should be it. So happy to take any questions. I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Questions for Derek? John Alessi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank Derek and his team. They've been extremely helpful, at least with my work in Arlington for the past year or two, on kind of getting us started with a lot of these discretionary funds we've received through earmarks and even funding through the Boston MPO's project design pilot. They've been very helpful in guiding us through this process. So I just want to express my appreciation to Derek and his team, and just want to state that I find that, this entire new team and program, I've been working in municipal government for the past 4 years, and this has been the missing gap, I think, to get, smaller, meaningful projects started. I've always found throughout my work, both working for Arlington and Malden, that the design funding just to get the projects, designed and started, that's been the gap. I have consistently found difficulty getting funding in my municipalities for that. Plenty of grant programs out there to support the construction, but the design work has been the missing gap. So I'm really excited to see this work get started, and especially for the rural and economically disadvantaged communities. I know that a lot of communities in the greater Boston region, they have dedicated transportation staff like myself that can go after these things. So the one comment I have is just hoping that this team makes a lot of dedicated outreach to the municipalities that don't have a transportation person to look out for these opportunities, and making sure that this team's engaging with those folks. But again, really excited to see this work get started, and just thank you again, Derek, for all your work.
Thank you. Yeah, much appreciated.
Others? Seeing none, please do feel free to contact Derek I shared John's comments, Derek and his new staff who have hit the ground running are really moving this forward quickly and efficiently, and we're really hoping this becomes something that provides, again, to John's point, a missing link and is useful at helping generate projects that we can then try to fund through our TIP process and otherwise, right? Derek's team's going to help with going after federal grants. Hopefully they'll still exist, as well as other grants. So really, please do reach out to them if you have a question. Next item, thank you, Derek, very much.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is, I believe, member items. Are there any? Brian Kane.
Well, thank you so much, David. And Derek, since, well, yeah, I guess I just want to say thank you. And David, thank you for setting that office up. I wonder if someone could discuss the memo that was sent out last night about grant funding. Speaking of grant funding, specifically, Tegan, I think you sent it the other day. Yeah, around grant agreement guidance given recent preliminary injunction. This was sent 2 days ago.
Yeah, I'll take a chance. And again, for the record, MassDOT is not suggesting anybody do anything in particular. We do not offer legal advice to communities, but for our grant process, MassDOT was one of the 20 state lawsuit that was successful in getting a preliminary injunction that prohibits the Trump administration, from requiring us to do the ICE certification, immigration enforcement certification, as a condition of getting our federal grants. That includes Massachusetts, the state of Massachusetts, as well as our political subdivisions. So when we started signing our grants, we originally put in language drafted by the Attorney General's office and Governor's legal office. FHWA, not surprisingly, rejected our language, not necessarily because they didn't like our language, but because I think they want to maintain control of their documents. They then submitted, they put in place of our language, other language that our attorneys reviewed and felt was sufficient to protect our rights. That's the language Derek has shared with everybody, that Tegan has then shared Derek's email with everybody. So there is language that you can look for. If you're signing a federal grant, you can look and see if it's there. If it's there, it's still up to you whether you think it protects your rights and you're comfortable signing it. But it is language that the federal government is putting in that they believe is compliant with the preliminary injunction, and MassDOT has signed that grants with that language in it.
Thank you very much. And David, I could never afford your legal advice anyway, so I would never ask.
And again, this is all part of our attempt to be more proactive in sharing with local governments and RPAs any information we think they need. This is all part of Derek's brief. Any other questions? Any other member items? Seeing none, can I get a motion and a second to adjourn? And please state your name for the record when making the motion. Eric Barassa.
Eric Barassa, MAPC. I'll make a motion to adjourn. Thanks all.
Thank you. Is there Brian Kane?
Second.
Any objections? Without objection, we are adjourned.